then check, and then queen g5, and then takes and takes. And now the idea is that white has knight c7 hitting the rook, and if the rook moves, there's knight to e6 check. Black is maybe slightly better here, so white might be able to kind of adapt his idea with bishop to d6, hitting this rook, and after rook to g8, then playing knight to c7. And for instance, a position like this is about equal. Maybe black is a microscopic bit better, but basically this should probably be a draw. So I'd rather have black, but white's rook and 2 pawns are probably enough for the 2 minor pieces. So I would say it's a more dangerous position for white than for black, but ultimately it should be a draw. Okay, well that's a lot to see and to assess properly, especially when you think of all the complications that are present here. So white played f takes e5. If d takes e5, there would be the same response, and black would be much better in either case. So Reshevsky played f takes e5, and now, boom, knight d takes e5. Okay, he takes, and what's the big idea here? Well, very nice follow-up blow from Viganian. Bishop to h4 check. Alright, the king has no moves. If he plays, well, it does have one move, taking the bishop, but nowhere else. If he plays knight takes, then queen f2 is mate. So it's very easy to find white's move here. It's king takes h4. Okay, well now what? I mean, black is down 2 pieces, and it's beautiful to see the king on h4, but what do? If you play queen f2 check, for instance, then knight g3, queen takes g2, and bishop to f1. And what's black doing? If he plays queen f2, then simply, well, let me think. Yeah, rook e2 is, well, no. Queen e2 certainly is not bad. Just trying to find something even better. Well, yeah, just bishop to e3 is also very strong. I mean, it lets the black queen escape, kind of, but white's just up 2 pieces now, and with something like queen takes d5 and then maybe e6, the king can escape to h3. So this looks like a dead end for black. You can play queen takes f3, but he's just down a piece. So this is just dead won for white as well. So queen f2 check is no good, but what else is there? Well, the answer, and of course Viganian had to have seen this before playing e5, and has to see more than that besides, is rook takes f3. So this is a great move. If white takes the rook, then check, king has to come up, check again, and it's mate in no more than 2 moves. If the king goes back, then g5 is the end. If the king goes up, then queen f3, and okay, if the king goes to h4, then queen g4 or queen to h3 is mate. And if the king goes to g6, there are various mates. There's queen f7, there's knight e7, and there's knight e5. Okay, white's only chance here is to use a Novotny, bishop to f5. So it's a move that forces one piece or the other to block the other one's line. Although actually the rook on f3 doesn't really have anything to do on the f-file on like f6 or f7 or f8. Anyway, after bishop to f5, rook takes f5, queen d5 check, so it was also a clearance sacrifice, king h8, and now queen to b3. And maybe white has some very small chances to hold here. Okay, they're not great chances, but it's something. It's better than nothing. So white still can make black prove that there's a win here. I think there is a win there, mind you, but it's just that it takes a little work. So in the game, instead, Reshevsky played rook to f1, which certainly makes a lot of sense. It's covering f2. And white still is up a full piece, but black proves that it's a winning position. Queen to b4 check. It's a very good move. And after bishop to f4, the queen goes to e7 check. This forces bishop to g5, and now another queen move to e6. And there are 2 threats. There's queen to g4 check, queen to g4 mate, but also if h3, this doesn't really help because we can play queen h3. Alright, rook takes h3 is, I think, better etiquette. This is just kind of needlessly flashy. But either way, you have this mate in 2. Let me see. Yeah, if rook takes f3, of course, queen g4. If gf3, queen h3. So the only move for white here is, again, this bishop to f5 idea. Okay, rook takes f5, and now, not queen takes f5 because queen takes d5 check, and then queen takes f3 would be winning. So rook f5. Now, if rook takes f5, queen f5, queen d5 check, bishop e6. The thing is, white's not even up any material anymore. Okay, he's up the pawn on e5, but that's disappearing. His queen's under attack. Queen g4 mate is threatened. Maybe h3 followed by h6 followed by g5 is a threat. The e pawn drops, as I said. So this is horrible for white. For instance, if queen f3, queen takes e5. Okay, now we're going to play rook f8. And if bishop f4, then g5 check is very strong. So it's just a lost position for white. In the game, Reshevsky tried knight to f4. Okay, well, queen takes e5, and believe it or not, after all of that, black is up a pawn now. And the bishop on g5 is in big trouble. So he plays queen to g4, which is a very clumsy move to make, since he's putting the queen opposite this bishop on c8. So black played rook to f7. Maybe queen to d6 is even more accurate, but rook f7 is just fine. Okay, queen to h5, and now a nice move, knight to e7. So threatening knight to f5 check, maybe even threatening, in some cases, rook takes f4, and then knight to g6. Though probably not here. Okay, white played g4, and we see another idea too, knight to g6 check. And the point of this, actually this was a threat last move too. If knight takes g6, queen h2 is mate. So Reshevsky had to bring his king back to g3, but now it's just terrible. So white's knight is badly pinned, and after bishop to d7, okay, the queen goes back. He tried bishop to h6, but this is just a cheap bit for attention. And after rook 8 f8, he resigned. Okay, the bishop is under attack, and the knight is under attack, and white's king is still bad, and black is up a pawn, as if he didn't need enough assets in the position. So white resigned here, and we saw, this is just the conclusion of an absolute massacre, and of a great player. I mean, Reshevsky was still very, very strong in 1976, so not a bad player at all, but he was just completely demolished here. So this shows the danger that faces white in this kind of position, and as well as being just a very exciting and tactically fun game. So in these lines, I mean, you see all this magnificent pawn chain that white has, but you can see that black can really rip it apart here. And so one of the things is having all this extra space, until you really control with your pieces all the squares behind your pawns, bad things like this can happen. Okay, it's not that this variation is bad for white. I mean, we saw that there were plenty of games where white was doing okay, but it is very dangerous. So always be aware of that. If you play the French, certainly don't be afraid to see this massive V wedge coming from the other side of the board. There are plenty of ways of trying to undermine it. And likewise, if you're white, don't get overconfident. The position can blow up in your face. So I hope you enjoyed this, learned something too, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.